Do what?
Everybody, I don't know if you know me or not, but I'm Derek Lawson. I work at the hospital full time. Lake Florida, I used to be busy full time too, so, and then I work with the city too. Work with the city as an alternate, so I stay pretty busy, but this is something that, this seminar was something that was presented to us by Bondman and Bank. Said, hey, there's an opportunity here for y'all to get more money to do seminars in the community, but you know, we need to get started and do one. So part of the thing we're here for tonight is, of course, the information. That's the most important part. But the other part is that Bondman is working with us to get this grant to help pay for other things with the chamber and Main Street and so other organizations. Just tell you a little bit about Fuller Center, if you're not familiar with it. Fuller Center has been around since about 2007. Prior to that, we were part of Habitat for Humanity, and it was founded in 1991 by Dr. Charles Payne. Most of y'all probably know Dr. Payne. He's still very active. I say he's very active. He tells me what to do, but he doesn't swing a hammer anymore. We have constructed 57 new homes since 1991, and we have 25. We just finished one over here on Oak Street. We've got 3 houses we built there in a row that are real nice. We also own. And we have one of our homeowners back there. Her house is paid for, she owns it, and we can offer what we do. How we work is we work off of donations and grants. We do not take government money because we don't want the government telling us what to do, because we are a Christian organization. When we build these homes, we select a homeowner. They have to go through a lot of things to get selected. They have to be in a bad home, bad situation. They have to be low income, almost poverty level, and they have to be willing to put the work in. They have to put in 500 hours of swimming and $500 down, so they don't get it for free. And then we finance only what we pay for the construction materials at 0% interest for 20 years. We can't beat that. And we try to follow God's plan on that. We also own Main Street Thrift, which has helped fund this last house. It's helped us pay for a lot of things. The sales, our managers here, where's Regina? Here's Regina. Very proud of Regina and Sherry down there, our staff. They do an excellent job. And if y'all have never been to the store, it is fantastic. If you go to some of these other thrift shops, we got them beat. So, at least I think we do. And I'm really proud because we've been in that location for 10 years, and we just purchased that building down there. The owner came to us and said, hey, I got a deal for you. We're over, we want to verse on 5, and so they made us a really excellent deal, and so we purchased that building, and we own that building now, which is nice, and we're real proud of that. So, well, what we're going to do is, I'm not going to go too much more on that. I did put one thing in there called Plan Giving, so as you're working through and looking at your wills, this is something Fuller Center does. I've got some people in here in town that have put gifts in their wills to us, and you know, hopefully they'll live for a long time, so we don't have to worry about it. With that, I'm going to turn this over to our speaker, Jason White with McConnell Snyder. Jason, he's back there. Jason, we started using Jason for our attorney when my late wife passed away. Didn't have any more attorneys. She worked for Sure. And Jason and Marguerite have done us wonderful, and we appreciate everything they do for us. Thank you.
I know it's not really the best weather.
We're gonna have to speak up.
So you need to speak up. You can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Y'all hear me in the back? All right. Okay, we're going to talk about a few things tonight. The first part's going to be about the wills. After I finish with the wills, I'm going to have Amanda come talk to you. She's with the clerk's office at Webster Parish. She's going to give you some information about new developments about filing wills, which is very new in the state of Louisiana. It's very helpful as well because one of the things we're going to mention, as you pass away, you can't tell anybody where your will is. And location of will is actually a very important thing for the succession, which is the second thing we're going to talk about. If anybody has any questions, feel free, because I'm going to take as many questions as you can. I don't like to stand up here and bore you. I'd rather answer your questions while you're here. Okay, first thing I want to talk about though, in Louisiana there's two types of wills. You may have heard about handwritten wills. Anybody heard about a handwritten will?
Yeah.
Okay. So technically speaking, that's called an holographic will. Alright, big word means handwritten will. Alright, anybody know the proper way to do that? That's why I'm here, I guess. Okay, so an holographic will is a handwritten will. It has to be entirely handwritten, okay? It cannot have one single word that's typed on that will. I can't tell you how many times I have seen a holographic will come into my office, and unfortunately the will is not valid because essentially it's a mixture of handwriting and typing, print. So you can't do that and have it be valid if you're trying to attempt the holographic will. Holographic wills are really simple to do though, if you want to do that, or at least try to, right? We always recommend, even if you do an holographic will, it's a good idea to have an attorney review it to make sure that it complies with all the rules. Louisiana is a very hard state when it comes to wills. Unfortunately, when a judge looks at your will, it's too late to change it because you're already dead. I hate to put it that way, but that's the truth, right? So, holographic will, going back to that, entirely handwritten in the handwriting of the testator, must be signed and dated on every single page, okay? So if you have a sprawling will that goes more than one page, that second page, again, entirely handwritten in the hand of the testator, but it also has to be signed again and dated again, and I recommend you put page 2, okay? All right, so really that's the holographic will in a nutshell. Some people think it has to be notarized, it has to be with it. Actually doesn't. It just has to be entirely handwritten in the hand of the testator, signed and dated on every single page, okay? Everybody got that? All right. Good. Oh, this is just Louisiana. Yeah. I'm only a licensed Louisiana lawyer. I am not licensed to practice in Arkansas. We will not talk about Arkansas law here. At least not me. I can't hear you.
What if you can't read the handwriting?
Oh, well, that's a very good question. Everybody's got interesting handwriting, right? Well, without trying to jump ahead too far, in a succession, when someone passes away that did an holographic will, you actually have to have two people that are familiar with the handwriting of the person that did the holographic will to A, testify to the fact that they're familiar with the person's handwriting, and B, essentially say that that is their handwriting. So I assume that there was something, let's say that it's questionable. No, you know what? That holographic will does not have to be notarized. Okay, it just has to be. And you'll hear some people call them deathbed wills, that sort of thing, and that's why they exist. It's because they're really kind of 11th hour, 59 minutes will, right? Now, if you have time, it's better to just go to an attorney, get a will, okay? Because, like I said, the problem. There's nothing wrong with holographic wills per se, but the problem is they can still be messed up, right? And then once it's too late, well, you can't go back and change it. So at least have an attorney review even if you want to save some money. Some people just want to save money, and I don't blame them. But have somebody review it just to make sure that it's good so you can sleep easy. Okay? Now the second type of will is quite the opposite of an holographic will. It's a very formal will that's usually done through a lawyer's office, and those are called notarial testaments. Right? So, for example, if you come, I can't really testify as to what goes on in other people's offices, so I'll just tell you what happens in my office, right? So you come into my office, you tell me, I'm going to ask you first question, what's your goals, right? What is it that you want? Who do you want to leave stuff to? Who do you want to be an executor or executrix of your succession? Things like that, okay? And then I'm going to take that information, I'm going to put it into a will format, all right? Now, you're going to hear things, people will tell you about simple wills and things of that nature. There really is no such thing as a simple will. There's no one size fits all for a will. I wish that were true, but it's just not the case. Everybody that comes into my office wants something different. So their will is going to be different from everybody that walked in before them, okay? Now, with a notarial testament, there are a lot more harsher formalities. So it's very, it's kind of the opposite of an holographic will in the sense that there's certain clauses and phrasing and all sorts of things that have to be in the will. Now, you know, generally speaking, only attorneys are familiar with those things because they had to go to school for 3 years and hear all about ad nauseum, if you ask me. But it is what it is. That's why we went to law school, I suppose. So that's really the main difference between those two types of wills. Honestly, that's about all I have to say about wills, other than, you know, it is important to have a will. Let me retract my statement. Let's talk about this. How many married people are in the room? Okay. Okay, we got a lot of married people in the room. How many live in Louisiana? Right? Okay. All right. Anybody not have a will? Okay, we got a few. All right. So, if you don't have a will, and you're married in Louisiana, do you know where your stuff goes?
No.
It doesn't go to your spouse. All right, it goes to your kids. And if you don't have kids, it goes to your siblings, if you have siblings.
What that's what I thought of.
Hey, I got a bunch of people. Just let me finish. There's a reason why we call this a sweetheart will. It's to make sure that your spouse doesn't have to deal with other people if you die first, right? So we do a lot of sweetheart wills. So, for instance, I'm going to pick on Mike alone. So if Mike dies before Ms. Nancy, and Mike doesn't have the will, well, Ms. Nancy, your house that you have with Mike, you know, his interest in that house is not going to you. Now, if he had a will that said, I leave my interest in the house, or for example, all my interest in everything to my wife, if I die before her, well, she'll get it. She doesn't have to deal with anybody else, right? So that's a situation that unfortunately happens a lot with people that don't have wills, and they are married. And sometimes you have stepsons and stepdaughters, and there's all sorts of different relationship mixtures, right? And you can see a lot of complications. And oftentimes, sometimes you even have a child that may be difficult, but you know, that's yeah, I see a lot of yeses. So I'm gonna leave that alone.
Yeah.
But my point is, if you die without a will, we have Louisiana default statutes that basically dictate where your stuff is gonna go. So for example, if you're married, you have two different kinds of property, right? You have separate property and you have community property. Community property you share with your spouse equally until one of two things happens, right? You either get divorced or you die. Now, same thing. If you die, that 100% joint ownership basically gets split into two 50-50s, right? So Miss Nancy would have her 50%, but where's Mike's will? Well, if he has a will that's valid, let's say a valid will, right, Mike? If he has a valid will, that's going to dictate where his 50% goes. So maybe he left it to Miss Nancy, and now she has 100%, okay? If he doesn't have a will, state of Louisiana gets to dictate where it goes, all right? And I kind of alluded to it, but generally speaking, things go down. If there is no down, and that's kids, right? If there is no down, then you go back and you go sideways, right? So there's some situations where people have to deal with the siblings, the brothers-in-law, the sisters-in-law, those type of, people. So, maybe you have a good relationship with everybody and they just turn around and donate their interest back to you. Or maybe not so much. So this is where, just a highlight of the importance of a will. You have the control with a will, okay? You don't have a will, hang on, I'm gonna get to you, man. I see, if you do not have a will, you basically are at the mercy of these default statutes that the state of Louisiana has put out there. And oh, by the way, those things can change, right? So it's not even a consistent thing. I see you've had your hand up for a while, so go
Say
ahead.
you only have one child, do you still need a will?
I'm
Is there
sorry.
one child?
Okay, what you're asking is, I think she's just in the back. So she's asking if you only have one child, do you still need a will, all right?
Or you will?
Okay, well, that's up to you, okay? Now, as you pretty much have figured out, if you die without a will, it goes to your kids. So, in a way, if your goal is just to leave everything to your child, then at this present moment, you may not need a will, right? But, what did I just say? Those things change, right? Laws change every day. They're probably changing something while we're sitting here talking. But, again, one of the good things about a will is you don't have to worry about what the state of Louisiana is going to do, right? You don't have to worry about what anybody says. You have a will that controls everything. As long as that will is valid, it's going to go how you say, right? Okay, did someone you had a question in the back? Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, I
Sure, go ahead.
But then you get married and that person has some children, what do you do? Get a will and specify?
Let me just tell you, if you're asking me that question, you should probably go with me. Okay? Now, I'll be more than happy to talk to everybody more about it. I don't know if y'all know me and where I'm at. I'm Jason Wade from McConnell and Slattery. You can always come visit me at 121 South Main. But I'm going to try and get through all this in a very short amount of time. Specifically wills, does anybody have any quick will questions?
What would be the cost of the will?
Well, obviously that depends on where you go, right? So I can't speak to where.
But just overall, what's the actual cost? Just
Um,
ballpark figure.
okay, so I'll tell you what we charge, all right? Because that's really all I know. I do know, generally speaking, when you leave Spring Hill, things get more expensive. That's just what I've heard. Okay, so for a single person, we normally charge $300 for a will. The only time that would go up is if there was a lot to it. I have seen some people have a 25-page will. All right, a 25-page will, that might cost you a little more than $300. Because as with everything, lawyers, it's all about how much time, how much work, right? But we try to keep it easy as far as, the fee goes, because a lot of y'all know Mr. John, knew Mr. John, I should say, but, he always said that people should be able to have a will. And even if I've had so many people come in that wanted a will, they didn't have $300 on them right at the moment. And I think some people pay $20, But, we have good people here in this town. They pay their bills, maybe $20 at a time, but we always go by his old expression. When it comes to living wills and wills, that everybody should be able to have because they are very important. Okay. Now for couples, let's say Mike and Miss Nancy walk into my office. All right. I don't think you know where my office is, do you? So they walk into my office and they say, we both want some wills. We need some wills drawn up. Well, we give couples a discount. That may be a little discriminatory, but we give couples a discount because it's like a bundle discount. All right. So it's $250 a person. So you can save $100 if you bring your wife and bring your husband. Okay? Or your partner, your will. All right. So that's an example of, how much we charge, if that answers your question. All right, well, before I launch into successions, which is a whole nother ball of wax, Miss Romandy Ketchum from the West Parish Court Report is going to come up here and share some information with you about some recent developments in the filing of wills. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to probably stand to the side of this podium. This is a little tall. Well, my name is Amanda Ketchum, and I'm here as a representative of the Webster Parish Clerk's Reports Office. Many of you already know me from either elections or just being at the courthouse, and sometimes at Walmart. So it's a pleasure for me to come and speak with you today. Many people come into our office looking for a loved one's will. One's passed, and they assume that it's in our office. But unfortunately, a will is always filed in our office after the death. So when a succession is filed, that's when we'll get a will. And only if a will is within that succession. Otherwise, our office just won't have it. Now, if you choose to get a will, be sure that you know be sure that your loved ones or someone knows where you place it, okay? Most people will put it in a safety deposit box or with a trusted friend, but then there are those who will throw it in a drawer with a bunch of random papers or put it in a jar in a tool shed, or some will even put it in their favorite tackle box. Let's not be one of those. But as an alternative, the Secretary of State has a will registry. So this is a new thing. It's probably been out for maybe a year and a half. So you can either go to the Secretary of State website to get the form, or I have brought a couple back there and sat by our clerk's cards or counters, whichever you like. So basically what it is you fill out this form to put your name in the registry. And it says, hey, I have a will. And I placed my will wherever you placed it. Is your hiding spot. So let's say if you pass away, your loved ones can go to that website, Secretary of State website. There's a long list, it's in alphabetical order, and it will have your name. That's all it's going to show is your name. So if you pass away, then all the loved one will have to do is present a death certificate or even a newspaper clipping of the obituary to retrieve the location, only the location of that loved one's will. So, let's say you filled out that form and you chose to hide your will, like let's say an old tin cookie can, okay? And you put that, hid it really great in the back of the closet underneath great-great-grandmother's old quilts. If you do that will registry, and if you don't move it, that will still be there, and they'll be able to find it. Okay? So that's the importance of location, and someone needs to know. Okay? It's very, very important because that will is your last wish, and as a member of the Webster Parish Clerk Report, one of my many duties is I sit in the courtroom. I watch a lot of lawsuits happen, and one of the saddest things is watching people fight over what their mama or daddy did. Okay, so that will is that last testimony that says, "I want my baby girl to have my wedding ring," or "I want my son to have his cast iron skillets." And those are a lot of things that most people fight over, those little sentimental things. So it's very important that you do listen and you seek the advice of attorneys like Jason and Mark or me, because they are going to steer you in the right direction. Now there is one other thing I would like to touch base on that Jason said. He advised if you do a will, make sure you sign on each page and make sure the page is numbered. Do not get signature mixed up with initial. You want to put your signature on each page, not your initial. Okay? Do you have any questions? Okay, Jason.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, we'll start talking about successions now. The first thing I want to say, tied into what Amanda was talking about, though. Here's one thing I have a problem with. Okay, sometimes, I won't even say sometimes, a lot of times, people come to my office, say, Mom died, Dad died, whoever. Do they have a will? They ask me if they have a will, right? So one of the important things about that is, honestly, if I didn't do Mom or Dad's will, I have no idea if Mom or Dad has a will, much less where Mom or Dad stuck the will, okay? So that registry system, while it's another thing you have to do, it's a very important step, because the thing that I'm about to tell you is this. If you do a will, and nobody can find it after you die, it does you no good, it does me no good, and it certainly doesn't do anybody any good if you left anything to it in the will. And why is that? Because I need the original will in order to probate, right? The judge does not want to see a copy, okay? In fact, that's a problem, right? We have to have the original will to do a succession. If there is no original will, let's say I do your will, I'm going to make a copy of it, put it in the file. You have the original, maybe I have the original in my saved deposit box, but that's another story. Let's say you take the original home with you, nobody can find it, okay? Well, worst case scenario, we can try and probate a copy, but here's where it gets interesting. This is just kind of a little fun aside story before we really launch into successions. If I try to probate a copy, let's say Mike has 5 kids, but he only likes 3. So he left 3 kids all of his property. The other 2 got left out, which in most cases is perfectly fine for him to do. It's his stuff. Now, if I have a copy of Mike's will that says that, and we have no idea what the original is and we can't find it, we have to get all 5 kids to sign off saying it's okay for Mike's copy of the will to be probated. Which means that the 2 kids that got left out have to give approval to do that, okay? Now this is just an example, and this has actually happened before. And believe it or not, every now and then the 2 kids get it, but sometimes, most times, those 2 kids are kind of mad that they got left out to begin with. So now you have to go through it. So this is just a little like example as to why it's important for someone to know where the will is. Okay, even if you put it, like Amanda said, grandma's quilt. You're going to have, let's just talk about this. This is part of your will, but you have an executor or executrix, someone that's going to oversee your succession. Okay, so you already named them before you pass away. It's a good idea to let whoever you put in that category, and if you have an alternate, let them both know, hey, A, I did a will, B, here's where you can find it in case I die, right? Because once you're dead, nobody can ask you, all right? It is what it is. Okay, so let's talk about, just like there's 2 different types of wills, there's multiple types of successions, okay? How many people heard of the small succession? We got one. That's it? Maybe two? All right. Okay, small succession. All right. So Louisiana has an affidavit of small succession that can be done at times. I don't know how many of you have this handout. Looks like everybody got one. So it does mention that the word may. So you may qualify. So it depends on two things really. Calculation of the estate value and does the person have a will, right? Because if you have a will, the will has to go through court, has to get probated by a judge. It's a very formal process, just similar to making a formal will. So you can't do a small succession if you have a will. But when you're doing this small succession, or the affidavit of small succession, I should say, it's just that. You don't have control. So those are the state of Louisiana default statutes applying to where the stuff is going to go, right? So you have to have an estate that is valued less than $125,000, and you can't have a will. All right? And you also cannot have like massive debts because that's going to have to get handled in a different way. That's a very complicated, long drawn out story. But let's just say people talk about simple wills. I already told you they don't exist, but this is more of a simple succession. Okay, if there is such a thing as a simple succession, this is a simple succession. So no will, very limited debts. You have a solvent, i.e. it's not in the red estate, and you have ascertainable heirs. It's not a situation where nobody knows if there's any kids in the woods, you know, all that sort of stuff. Okay? Now that's the affidavit of small estate. There's a list on one of the handouts of kind of like the documents that you need to gather for all successions, but certainly with affidavit of small succession, you need a certified death certificate. It's going to have to be submitted with that affidavit. So again, if you have a will, you're not going to go this route. All right, I can tell you that right now. The other types of succession. So most states call it probate, but we just call it succession. Now, if you have a will, okay, or your estate has a value that's over $125,000, you're going to be going in through the full court process. All right, either way, one of the two. There are various cost differences for doing affidavit of small succession. It does save a little money, but you lose control. So, you know, that's up to you. I generally like control. I'm a control freak. Maybe that's why I became a lawyer. But anyway, so going back to the other types of succession. So you got a full court probate process if you have a will. Essentially, like, you go see an attorney, I'm preparing paperwork, we've got to submit, a stack, say about that big, to the judge, ask the judge to formally recognize the will as valid, probate the will, etc. And sometimes, depending on the situation, if there's not a lot of debt or are no debts, which is even better, you know, we might be able to just knock that out real quick. Sometimes there's debts. If there are debts, debts have to be paid. You can't, you know, just give the good away without the creditors getting paid, right? It's just not a fair world, unfortunately. That sounds great, but that's just not the world. The world doesn't work that way. Now, I already kind of talked about the importance of having a will, so I'm not going to rehash that. You're going to have, like I said, an executor and executrix. I call them, I have a nickname, glorified gophers, because they used to have an extreme amount of importance, maybe say 40 years ago, but these days it's a free job, and unfortunately for most of them, and it's a relatively simple succession. Their main job is to do what Derek has down here, gather documents, right? Because I can't gather documents. They keep an eye on the mail, they bring me the medical bills, they bring me bank statements, they bring me pretty much anything that is not publicly available so that, you know, I can compile the succession, put it all together, you know, birth dates, mailing addresses for the people involved, that sort of thing. So now, one of the key things they do, if there are debts, a deceased person cannot sign for anything, right? That's one of the reasons why we have to do succession sometimes. For example, ice storm, right? We have a lot of successions with ice storms. Insurance companies cut a check to the legal homeowner. Legal homeowner's dead, they can't sign that check. So you have to do succession to get the proceeds of the insurance check transferred over. Sorry, it's not water. Just an example. So an executrix can sign that. If there's debts, say we have to sell a car to pay a medical bill, right? And the executor or executrix, well, they can sign the bill of sale, sell the car for $10,000, and we pay the medical bill, it's $5,000. Well, now, if all the debts are gone, well, that's it. And then we just close out the succession, everybody gets what they're supposed to get, okay? So successions, I could talk for hours about successions because they, quite simply, you have simple, and there's not a title, but you have simple successions, and you have successions that can drag on for years. Some of that story resides in how well do the brothers and sisters and family members get along. I think Romana talked about it, but I've been involved in a few, and it's kind of disheartening how family does fight, and people die over stuff. But that's one of the importances of having a will, right, Romana? So if you have a will, there's no fighting about it. It is what it is, right? I think we kind of hit everything on the outline. So real quick, I want to take succession questions, and then if we still have time, what I'd like to talk about, what in my view is when it comes to the legal world, the legal holy trilogy, it is power of attorneys, living wills, and wills, all right? So if you are thinking about getting a will, you should also think about power of attorneys. You should also think about a living will. There is a difference, too, between a living will and what we're talking about. It's technically a last will and testament. Because a living will has to do with while you're alive. Power of attorney has to do with while you're alive. Both those things expire when you die. When you die, the last will and testament kicks in. Okay? So it's a glorified, when I say it, the last will and testament, I kind of jokingly refer to it as a glorified instruction manual. What do we do with your stuff when you're gone? That's basically what a will is at the end of the day. Okay? So real quick, questions? Any questions on successions? Wow, you all know about successions now. Well, just to wrap up on that, so I might have mentioned this, I can't even recall, but affidavit of small succession, again, it's under $125,000, and you can't have a will. So, in theory, Amanda will probably tell you this too, in theory, you don't have to be an attorney to do it. Is it a good idea to do it yourself? I can't say it is, but people have tried, some people have done it. Some people, tried and they messed it up so bad it cost them more money to fix it than it would have to do it, the proper way to begin with. But the second two kinds, you have a will where your estate is valued over $125,000, you will have to find an attorney to deal with that estate.
What if you have a will, like with a regular succession, but your estate's way below the 125?
Yeah, so it's still, technically it's considered a small succession with probate.
Okay.
So it still has to go through the court process.
Sure.
Now, Romana will tell you the court costs are cheaper than they are within a state that's over 125,000. So the state of Louisiana is trying to cut people breaks when their estates are below that line, and that number also keeps moving. So before you know it, maybe 150,000, 200,000. So it's kind of like one of the things I'm about to talk about. Let's go back real quick. How many people, I don't know if I should ask this question. How many people are familiar with Medicaid? Medicaid, not Medicare, but Medicaid. Have family members, or I'm not saying personally on, but familiar with Medicaid. Right? So Medicaid, when you are gathering your key documents, step 2, if your mom was on Medicaid, your dad was on Medicaid, all right, you want to make sure to wait because they will be sending you a bill. All right. I have seen people go through and just try and get successions done, and then next thing you know, 3 months later, they get a Medicaid bill for $400,000. Some of them are that, hey, I've seen them. You think I'm kidding? Medicaid is a reimbursement program, if y'all don't know it, all right? So basically, when Medicaid pays for something on your behalf while you are alive, as soon as you pass away, they are required by the federal government, who's providing all the money, to send a letter to the estate that says, you owe me, whatever that number is, basically represents how much they spent on you while you were alive in the medical care. Okay, so if somebody has Medicaid and they pass away, and it's like your mom or whoever you're trying to get a succession done for, and you haven't seen a Medicaid bill, well, either wait for it or call Medicaid to just make sure, because 95% of the time, I guess every now and then something slips in Medicaid, but 95% of the time, you're talking about getting a bill, and it could be 10,000, it could be 30,000. I have seen 6 figures, but that's one of those creditors that will always send you a bill. Credit card companies, check for credit card bills. There's quite a few credit card companies, and you may get lucky with some with a certified death certificate. Some will just write it off, but I'm not going to name names, but there's quite a few that for whatever reason they don't write anything off, and they will file a claim against the estate, and just like it says in those outlines, it's one of the debts that will block a succession from moving forward. It has to be taken care of. Okay, but Medicaid is the one I want everybody to be aware of. Whether it's you, whether it's your brother, sister, mom, dad, if they're on Medicaid, that's a no-brainer. Like, you're gonna have to wait for that bill, okay? Because you don't want that surprise at the end. If you were to do a succession and then bills come in later, you may be personally obligated for that stuff. You don't want to, have that on your back, right? You'd rather take care of it at the front end before you get the stuff. And maybe the stuff doesn't come to you, but it's better than having a bill, right? All right, real quick, power of attorneys. There's a couple types of power of attorneys, but if you are at the point where you're talking about wills, you probably want to talk about power of attorneys, at least consider having a power of attorney. What does that do? Basically creates another you, right? So I call them cloning devices. So I've got Mike as my medical power of attorney, for example. Mike can help and assist me in pretty much anything and everything when it comes to medical affairs. Right? Can't touch my money, right? Because it's just a medical power of attorney. Now, the converse is true. There's financial power of attorneys. 95% of the time, people want a general power of attorney. General power of attorney is just that. It is medical, it's financial, it's the whole 9 yards. So if I give if Mike's my agent under general power of attorney, I basically just clone myself. And now Mike can do anything and everything I could do. Now, you still have a fiduciary duty, Mike, to not steal my money, right? And not do anything that I wouldn't want you. And another big thing is, it doesn't take away my rights, right? I didn't give my rights away to Mike. I just made sure that Mike could go deal with banks, hospitals, if I need him to. Especially later in life, if I'm not able to do that. I'm sorry?
That's when you're no longer able to.
Well, that is one of the different types of power of attorneys. Now, you can add a clause that's called a conditional clause, right? So I can have a conditional power of attorney. That conditional element essentially makes it where if I'm physically or mentally incapacitated, then that document becomes alive. If I'm not, it's dormant, right? But at least it's there, able to be used. If you don't have one, you don't have one, period. And sometimes you can have an accident, you can, overnight I've seen people go into the hospital and not come out for a while, okay? But, you never know what's gonna happen. That's kind of the whole point of talking about this stuff is estate planning, but we're also talking about life planning, right? So power of attorneys, they do expire when you die. So it's like a transition. So that's when your last will and testament comes into effect. And that's why you have an executor or executrix. They essentially will get a power of attorney after death over the estate. All right. Now, living will, the difference between living will and last will and testament. All right, living will, declaration of what you would want to be done if you're a treating physician in an independent third or second physician agree that you're in a terminal state and there's really nothing they can do, right? So make you comfortable. That's what a living will is. So people get that confused a lot. I hear, I need a living will, and then I'm like, okay, and then they start telling me who they want to leave stuff to. And I was like, well, hold on, which is fine, people get confused. It's confusing stuff. That's why lawyers go to law school for 3 years, right? And some of them still walk out of there not knowing what's going on, right? Okay, so that in a nutshell, general power of attorney is one very common one, but you have the medical power of attorneys, which strictly give people the ability to help you with medical conditions, okay? So they can help you, they can pick up your prescriptions, they can make doctor's appointments, surgery schedules, things of that nature. I mean, it's a very long list that I'm not going to repeat off the top of my head. It's about 5 pages, but you get the point. The point is, you can do a medical power of attorney. That way people aren't messing with your money, okay? You can even put conditional on there so it doesn't become active unless you're physically or mentally incapacitated. And, if you come back around, for example, like my dad, he had a surgery. He had to go under for 8 hours, when he comes back around, well, that document goes to sleep, okay? Because at least allegedly, according to him, he's in his right mind and he can do it, right? Sometimes I disagree with that. Anyway, so medical power of attorney, financial power of attorney, general power of attorney, which again is basically combined. You can add the conditional elements in any of those. We pretty much discussed the living will. Living will, 99% of the people that get a living will through me don't want artificial prolonging. You get to choose whether you want food, water, neither, both, that sort of thing. That's what a living will is. Okay, it's kind of like DNRs. People talk about DNR all the time. All right, any questions? I think I hit on everything I wanted to hit on. Actually, there's more, but go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
You gave us a cost for writing a will.
Yes, sir.
Do you have a cost for updating wills?
Updating wills. Okay, that's a good question. Because there is a different price, sort of, right? It always depends. It always depends. Now, if you want to update your will, and let's say you got 2 minor changes to the will that you already have. Well, there's actually a legal term for that, and it's called a codicil, okay? It's a stupid fancy word that means amendment, change, whatever you want to call it. But technically it is a codicil, okay? we charge $100 for a codicil. You know why? Because it takes us less time to do an amendment to your will than it does to, just do a new will from scratch, right? So yes, that's a very good question. If it's what I consider to be a minor change, then we'll only charge you $100. Okay? I think I mentioned this earlier about like just in general, if y'all have wills already done, or you try to do your will like holographic will, that you should always at least get an attorney to review it. So just on that note, we will review a will for $50. I will tell you two things. Number one, is it valid, right? Because that's pretty important. And number two, I'm going to ask you, what were you trying to do when you wrote this will? Like, what were your goals, okay? And if your goal was to leave it to person A and not person B, but person C, I'll look at your will and make sure it's okay, all right? Now, if your will's not valid, or if what you were trying to do didn't work in it, well, neither one of those things are good, right? So then we can try and do a codicil, or we might have to start over. We'll see. It depends, right? I saw some hands earlier.
Okay, so a general will covers medical, financial, the whole bit. So is that pretty much power of attorney, yeah. Okay. Where we come from, we call it a durable power of will. Is that pretty much the same thing?
Yeah, so, okay, well, yes and no.
Okay.
Right? All right, so I don't know if y'all heard her, but she was asking whether, correct me if I'm wrong, if a general power of attorney is the same thing as a durable power of attorney. Everybody hear that? All right, if I had $1 for every time I heard that question, or something like durable power of attorney,
Yeah.
I'd probably be retired. Right?
Yeah, probably.
It's a very good question. So they used to actually have a durable power of attorney, quote unquote, right? For whatever reason, we don't have durable power of attorneys anymore.
Okay.
Now, what we have, like if you've got a general power of attorney, let's say, the last paragraph that you're going to see in that general power of attorney is a durability clause. Now, I don't know what the state of Louisiana legislators do what they do, but that's not my business. Point is, it's still going to be durable because I've got a clause in there that says, if you become physically or mentally incapacitated to the point where you can no longer revoke this power of attorney, which is a nice way of saying, you're no longer mentally competent and you can't take your own legal acts, that this power of attorney shall continue to remain in effect until you pass away, right? Just like we talked about. So, yes, that's essentially, without being a label on it,
Right.
the durability clause, which without having a label makes it a durable power of attorney without being one. Does that answer your question?
Gotcha.
Anybody else got any questions? All right, Mike.
Wouldn't it make more sense to do the handwritten will to the best of your ability and then bring it to you and then you turn it into a formal will? Because you may see something on there that this is probably not going to fly, we might be a little different here.
Yeah, what he's talking about is saving money.
Yeah, we're all about that.
So I don't know if y'all can hear that in the back. Mike's asking, what do you think? Correct me if I'm wrong. Made more sense. Do an holographic will, take it to a lawyer, have him review it for $50, right? And then if it's good, you're basically gonna save $250, right, Mike?
Now, if you turn it into a formal, it'd still be 300, wouldn't it?
I don't know, I'm kidding. But if it's good,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna charge you $300 to do a formal typed up will if your holographic will is good. I'm gonna charge you $50 for telling you it's good.
I wouldn't think if I done it, it'd be that good, though.
Well, and that's the thing, is you get it reviewed, if it's not good,
Yeah.
then, we go from there,
Yeah.
right? But if it's good, then you save yourself $250 and you can sleep at night, right? So, yeah, it's a great question, like, I'm just picking on you. All right, anybody else? I'll come right, here we go. Amanda. There we go.
Okay, so I'm gonna say something, I'm gonna throw it at you, and you're gonna say why. Say you're a customer, you're coming into the clerk's office, you say, hey, I need a copy of my ID. What's your name? Jason Wade. I'm looking up Jason Wade. Well, I don't see Jason Wade. Is it listed under another thing? Are you like maybe, I don't know, George Jason Wade? No, ma'am. Well, when did you acquire it? Well, my mother passed away. Ding, 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 ding. So, was succession done? Well, what's that? You know, the paperwork that transfers all of her property, and that includes land, into your name. No, never has been done. Guess what? It's not in his name. It's still in his mama's name. And you say if he passed away, and he had
And who owns it,
and
man?
then it just branches down. It's like a tree that just keeps spreading. So it is very important to do a succession. Right, Jason?
Let me tell you a story. Thank you, man. I'm gonna close on this, okay? Hurricane Katrina happened about 20 years ago now. My first job out of law school, I actually helped run the Katrina hearings. Not many people know this, but one of the biggest impediments to recovery after Hurricane Katrina was people not having done successions in the city of New Orleans for a very long time. Okay? Here's what happens. The typical story, just like Amanda was talking about. So, my mom dies. I don't do a succession. She owns the house. I just move in. I pay the taxes, so the state's happy, the parish happy, the city's happy. Nobody complains. All right, now I die. Same thing happens, next generation. Okay? Now, eventually, I'm not saying Hurricane Katrina is going to come to Spring Hill. It's not. Well, I hope I didn't. I was there. The point of this story is eventually there will be a problem. How long people wait, especially when we're talking generations, makes that solution much harder. All right? So, like Amanda said, if my mom passes away and she owns the property, you know, everybody calls it a house, but it's just the property, and I do a succession, well, it's done. Now, if we wait a couple generations, well, you got people dying everywhere, but all of a sudden, you got a lot of successions to do, and let's say a tree falls on the house, or the ice storm hits, and you need an insurance company to pay for a new roof. Well, that check is going to be written to whoever the homeowner of record is, the legal homeowner, okay? So just like after Katrina, the insurance companies could only pay who owned the house. Well, a lot of them have been dead since the 1960s. Okay? So I have seen personally just up here that Claiborne Bear is really bad. Don't say I said, oh, Jerry's dead. But there are a lot of properties everywhere where you will see, if you look at them, sometimes it'll be a list of names. We like to call it air property, right? Sometimes those lists have, sometimes fortunately everybody's life, but a lot of times those lists just contain more deceased people. And it just gets more expensive and more expensive, because if a lawyer has to spend more time on something, what does that do? It makes it more expensive, right? And it has to be done. So one way or the other, it's much better to get ahead of something, just like we're talking about with estate planning. It's better to get ahead of it than wait for a problem to happen and then go pay a lawyer to try and figure out the solution. Because the lawyer's going to say, what? Should have come to me about 20 years ago, right? Now it's going to cost you 10 grand more. Not to mention the cost of everything, if y'all haven't noticed, the cost of everything keeps going up. Yeah, well, my bills go up at the office as well, just like everything else. So when my bills go up, we got to raise prices. Otherwise, you know, we got to close the doors. So you wait 10 years, well, you could have paid X this year. You wait 10 years to do it. I'm not going to tell you how much that's going to be because I don't even know. But I guarantee it's probably going to be more than it is today. Importance of planning. All right. Wills, power of attorneys, living wills, successions. You know, when it comes time to do them as soon as you can. I'm not saying do it as soon as the funeral is over because you know everybody's got to grieve. But at the end of the day, it's better to do it today than waiting for tomorrow. We can talk to you too about some things at the office. I know Eric's about he's looking like he's going to kick me out of here. I can talk all night. I'm not going to lie to you, successions are not that cheap relative to steps that you can take to basically what I like to call make yourself succession proof. So that number one, whoever comes down the line saves money. They don't have to write a big check in order to get mom's house transferred into their name.
And
Number
to be
two,
fair, not all of that, all those fees are the attorney's fees. The clerks get the
Yeah.
attorney as well. On that sheet of paper that I gave you, those are just the beginning. To follow a succession, just to update all the clerk's offices at least 14 times.
that's today.
Okay?
We shall see what happens tomorrow. But there are items, there are certain things that you can do, like donations. That's a very popular thing that we do. In Louisiana, there is a tool called a usufruct, where you can reserve the rights to the use and any fruits, which basically means benefits, i.e. money, right? That's what we're all talking about, money. So, Mike's my kid. This is a weird analogy. Mike, I keep picking on you, but you know what they told me in law school? Never sit in the front row. That's how you get picked on. So, I donated my house to Mike. Mike's my son, because, you know, I tell people, write down what you want in the will. I'm going to show you how to do it right now instead of waiting till you're dead. And then I'm going to show you why it's better to do it now instead of later, okay? And I'm not trying to say that wills aren't important. Wills are a great thing to have. I can make you succession proof, and just in case you forgot something or something changes from the time that we do this, in between then and you die, you have a will as a fallback just in case. So don't think I'm saying wills are not important. They are. But my point is, to save time and money and a lot of heartache, to be honest, for your kids or whoever your heirs may be, it's easier to get out ahead of it, right? It's what we've been talking about all night, planning, all right? A donation with a usufruct. So I donated my house to Mike, but I reserve a usufruct for the rest of my life. Well, Mike is what we call a negado. He's just got the title. The title to the house shifts into his name, but I reserve all the rights to the use of it. Mike can't even use it. And Mike certainly can't kick me out of it, right? That's what a lot of people get worried. Can my kids kick me out? No. All right? Not until you're dead and then you're not using it anyway, okay? Also the fruits, so benefits. So the benefits, well, there's a lot of benefits from a house, but one of the benefits around here, you got minerals, right? You got timber rights, but even if, let's say, you move somewhere else, that usufruct doesn't go away. You can rent your house out, and the rent money's yours. Okay? So think about that. So one of the things it does, and I'm going to get into this later if you stop by in more detail, but basically, you don't want creditors to be able to attack things, right? So if it's in your estate, when you die, what I call the honey pot, that's your estate. If it's in the estate, a creditor can attach to it if there's a bill, okay? So we talk about Medicaid, we're talking about credit cards, we're talking about medical bills, we're talking about anything you can think of. I'm not talking about energy or, water bills or whatever. But the point is like big debts, car loans, anything like that, all right? If there's nothing in the pot, well, good luck. What are you going to do? All right? You can't get blood out of a turnip. So we're talking about doing this stuff in advance, trying to empty your pot and protect yourself, and really protect your estate from attack, okay? You're also going to hear about trust a lot. That's another strategy of planning that's much more complicated, and I don't know if we have time to talk about that tonight. But like I said, I'll be glad y'all come by the office. I'm glad to talk to you about it. But donations are very popular. You know, trust is not only more complex, but generally speaking, if you don't have a lot to stick in there, sometimes they're more of a pain in the butt than they're worth. I didn't say that, did I? Anyway. Now, if I donate my property to money, and let's say I take care, I'll give you some tips if you want to come see me about the rest of the stuff. But the biggest thing is property. Like Amanda said, in Louisiana, there is no other way to transfer immovable property, which is basically land, houses, that sort of thing. Once someone dies, the house is in their name. You gotta do a succession. There's no way to do it, all right? No way around it. No telling how much that's gonna cost. No telling how long it's gonna be. No telling if there's debts that are gonna be attaching to the house. I mean, you just never know, right? That's why you plan ahead. So now that I've put that into Mike's name, I don't have to worry about it. Okay, my use of just like a power of attorney. When I die, well, I can't use the house, right? So it's going to expire. All right. So we do a real simple little form that basically says, you know, I passed away. I got 2 people that says, yeah, they knew me and I'm dead. All right. Put that in court. Done. All right. And right now we charge like $400, something like that. I don't know. My better half is standing back there, so she can correct me if I'm wrong, something to that effect. But compared to thousands of dollars, $400, it's not that bad. Donations right now are about $800. You add those two together, and you're still saving about 67 to 80%, maybe even more compared to some successions. So you do the math. So not only is it better to get out ahead for risk aversion, but it's also cheaper. And it's done, and your kids don't have to worry about it when you're deceased and they're just trying to grieve. Okay? Anyway, if there's no more questions, I'm just going we got one more question. All right, last question.
Is there a time frame as far as that, like donating it to Mike? I mean, is there a time frame that can be constructed?
She asked, is there a time frame for donations? I believe it's your question, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes and no. It depends.
It depends.
That's my favorite word. Depends, right? Number one, I'm just going to say no with a caveat on it depends on what you want to do, especially with regard to Medicaid, right?
Okay.
If you ever
that
think that
was
you
kind
might
of a
need
thing.
Medicaid, right? And then also, if you're on, there are other programs that if you're already on them, you may or may not be able to do it. Also, if you have a mortgage on your house, you gotta get your mortgage company to approve that before you do it. Because they didn't give, they gave you a loan, they didn't give your kids a loan. Anyway, but so like Medicaid has a 5-year look back period right now. So if you think within 5 years, I may need to apply for Medicaid or may want to apply for Medicaid, that's one of the important things about planning ahead. So even though you may feel great, you look great, I'm never going into nursing home or assisted living, I may never need Medicaid, well, this is one of those things. Well, you might need it. Maybe it's almost 10 years down the road, but if you wait, like some people come into my office and say, I need to get on Medicaid, I need to donate a property. And I tell them, I'm sorry, but Medicaid has a 5-year look back period. If you do this, you're not going to be able to apply for Medicaid for 5 years. Okay? That's how they work. Right? You can always do, aside from that, right? Aside from government programs getting in the way, you can donate a property pretty much at will. Now, if you happen to die after you donate a property with a 1 year within 1 year after you donated. And there are debts that are unpaid. A creditor can try and still attach, like basically undo the donation. Because some people what essentially happens is like they rack up some debts and they're like, oh crap, those creditors are coming after my house as soon as I die. And then they give it away real quick and the creditors say, well, that's not fair. You know, they're sitting here racking up debt. So they do have essentially a look back period to undo a donation if there's debts that can't be paid at ultimate. But aside from that, there's like no prescription period, as we call it in Louisiana, or statute of limitations, anything like that. So you can do it as, as soon as and as late as you want. We always recommend doing it sooner than later because you never know what program you may need or not need. They do all have their own certain rules and regulations when it comes to donating something of value, or technically I think it's like transferring anything of value for less than 2/3 of fair market value. So you can always sell it to your kid for a discount, but you can't give it to them if you're going to need help with them in a 5-year period. And if you're on it already, well, you're behind your back. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Eric's got one. When are we getting out of here? That's what he's asking. All right.